Well, for some perspective on just what happened there in Britain and what it means for British citizens living abroad, I'm joined by Jane Golding. She's the chair of British in Europe. That's the biggest coalition group of British citizens living and working in the EU. Good morning.
Good morning, Terry.
Jane, the British Parliament has rejected the Brexit deal. Does that increase the chances that Britain will end up staying in the EU after all?
It possibly could do, but it may not do, because at the moment, the way everything is set up, automatically we would leave on the 29th of March. The legislation is set up for that. Of course, this huge vote against the deal and the vacuum that it leaves open could mean that other solutions have to be found.
Yes, 230. The margin against it was 230. That's really significant. Now, you represent the interests of British citizens living here in the European Union. What are the main concerns of those people like yourself now?
Well, the main concern for all of us is uncertainty. We've been living for over 2 years now in limbo. There are less than 70 days left until March, until the date that the UK is supposed to leave the EU. And a deal was made on citizens' rights last year. And what we've said from the beginning with the largest group of EU citizens in the UK, with whom we work very closely, is that people needed to be taken out of the equation, out of the negotiations. And what we want to see now is that Theresa May comes out, commits to ring-fencing that agreement that was reached already on citizens' rights and gives us certainty both to the EU citizens in the UK and UK citizens here in the EU 27.
There is still a lot of uncertainty at this point, of course, surrounding Brexit and what it means for UK citizens living abroad. Now, you've been following the Brexit saga from the beginning, of course. I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball at this point, and I want to ask you, what do you see happening on March 29th, coming up, as you say, just in a little over 70 days? That's the day that Britain is supposed to leave the EU. What do you think will happen?
Well, I think that the vote yesterday actually made the possibility of an extension all the more possible, far more possible than it was. It's already being talked about in the media. I was giving expert evidence in the Bundestag before the EU committee on Monday, along with other expert witnesses, and it was one of the questions that was being discussed in that context. And I, frankly, don't see how all the legislation can be put in place for the UK to leave by the 29th of March at this point. Time is just running out.
Now, you say you were speaking to members of the Bundestag and briefing them on what's going on. What are their concerns?
Well, I mean, obviously, they want to know what's going on in the UK and what exactly the UK wants. I mean, I think that's what everybody wants to know. Exactly what is it? There does not seem to be any... there doesn't seem to be any consensus among politicians on exactly what the UK wants at this point. And that was clear last night, obviously, because both sides, the two sides of the debate were voting against the deal for very different reasons.
Very conflicted indeed. The saga continues. Jane, thank you very much for talking with us this morning. That was Jane Golding, chair of British in Europe.
Thank you.